fact, digitalization has been the way forward since the beginning of the century. Still, last year, it was given a powerful push by the pandemic when the world had to adapt to a new normal in a short period of time. This side event will focus on the role of digitalization, the market needs and gaps, and how to work with them. I would like to introduce you Silvina Aquario, an international management executive, member of the sounding board on digitalization at the Alliance for Integrity, and our moderator for the panel, The Role of Digitalization in Compliance. Silvina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Suzanne, and the entire organization of this great group of people that Alliance for Integrity is for the invitation to moderate today for a topic that for me unifies the two things that are my passion, technology and compliance. So I'm really happy to be here with all of you. There's no doubt that COVID-19 has pushed us all for a great, super fast digitalization process, nearly from one day to another. So no more excuses. So no more doubts about whether or not to invest in technology or not. It's a big yes now. We have already proved that. And so the idea of this session is to focus on how digitalization needs to finally be embraced into our compliance community and into our practices of day to day. So this process would probably require retooling, updating, to increase the usage of new technology. And it is something that Alliance for Integrity has been working on for a couple of years. I still remember when we launched the TheIntegrityApp and, well, of course, all the work of all the sounding board. So and to help us to discover more about this, we have today two experts with me that I will have the honor to moderate today. So thank you, Rainer Marfort and Roland Haas. Just a little briefly, so we can jump directly into the questions. Dr. Marfort is the corporate partner in the Berlin office of Denton. He has many years of experience in the practice of compliance and restructuring, and he has accepted the role of global director in Denton's Client Solutions Innovation Team. Rainer is also a member of the board of DICO and as lecturer at the University of Saarbrücken, the Frankfurt School of Finance and Management, and the German Lawyer Academy. Thank you, Dr. Rainer, to be here with us today. And Roland Gross, he has been working in various positions of the GIZ for 28 years. And after finalizing his diploma in agricultural economics, he began his career at the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN in Rome. And very recently in March, after a very extensive career in the GIZ, in March 2021, he has been appointed as the head of the GIZ Business Scouts for Development Program, an international network of experts in 40 countries around the world who initiate international cooperation projects and advise companies on the opportunities for promotion, financing, and cooperation available through German and European development cooperation. Thank you both for being here today. So my first question, so we jump quickly and we don't waste more time, it goes to Dr. Marfort. How is digitalization the game changer for compliance? You're on mute, Rainer. Things that happen.
Classical mistake, even after 1 year of pandemic, still forgetting the mute button. Okay, thank you, Silvina, for the nice introduction, and thank you all for being here, inviting me to this discussion and this session. So yes, digitalization is a game changer for compliance, as in many other areas of business. And I think especially for compliance, this is mainly for three reasons. The one reason is the increasing scope of compliance departments that they have to cover. The second is cost pressure. And the third is the digitalization strategy of the companies. To elaborate a little bit on these 3 points, why and how has the scope of compliance departments increased in the past years? If we look back in the early 2000s, compliance departments and functions were mainly focusing on anti-corruption law and fighting corruption. Today, if we look at compliance departments, they cover more and more other parts of compliance. Let's take, for example, anti-money laundering, sanctions and export control, as long as there is no specific department covering that in some industries. It will continue, especially in the wake of the ESG regulations coming up and the increasing importance of supply chain compliance. So what has started as legal compliance focusing on anti-corruption is now getting more and more in scope, and I think for a good reason, because if you set up a compliance management system, the process and procedures for one topic, it makes a lot of sense to also cover other topics in the same way, so that in the end you have a consistent system of compliance management in a company. So that's one part. The other part is increasing cost pressure. So that's not only for compliance, it's for legal departments, it's for many other headquarter departments, all areas that are not productive in a way. I mean, we may dispute whether this and discuss whether this is right or wrong, but it's the reality. So all in-house departments live with this reality. So on the one hand side, increasing tasks, and on the other side, a reduction of resources, internal and external. So that is a strong driver for efficiency. And digital solutions enable compliance departments to do their work more efficient than in the traditional individual one-to-one discussions way. And then there's a third point, which I think is as important as the others. It is the digitalization strategies of the companies. And in most industries today, companies have adapted a digitalization strategy. So business is getting more and more digital. And now imagine how these compliance and business should communicate with each other when the business is already digital and compliance is still coming up with sending Word documents and emails. So again, there's a need in order to communicate on eye level to use digital tools.
Thank you, Dr. Rainer. I've heard you about the digitalization strategy, right? Well, you were mentioning this. I think that COVID has helped a lot of these, CEOs and also the SMEs that were, afraid of adding more tech, adding more technology because of the cost that sometimes it's involved, right? So, and but no, I think that after COVID has helped, to do that extra jump, faster, right? So, and now I would like to move to Roland and talking about this and how this has been adapted, right, into the African reality. So, how are the companies using digitalization, right, in Africa? Oh, you're on mute. Yes.
Sorry.
Thank you for joining me on that.
Yes,
we don't feel alone.
We younger people, Rainer, we are very much into IT, aren't we? So thank you very much. Thank you, Silvana, for this kind invitation and for giving me the opportunity to give a bit of background on GIZ's policy in terms of digitization and compliance. Personally, I'm neither an expert on digitization nor in compliance. I'm representing a program that through its various advisors offers solutions, digital solutions that might contribute to a better compliance system within a private company. So that's about the background that I'm standing for. So first of all, as a matter of fact, digitization for us, of course, is a cross-cutting issue that contributes toward the achievement of all sustainable development goals of the 2030 agenda. Digital technologies support improved social and political participation, we think, and help to make knowledge accessible and help to tap new markets. Politically speaking, on a political level, the promotion of digital solutions is an independent development policy objective that the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development is pursuing together with its partners in Africa and worldwide. By crossing physical barriers, digitization has made it easy for Africans to do business. You've got no money to rent an office, no physical address, that's not a problem. You can sell nowadays and market, you can meet buyers and deliver all in one place through facilities such Facebook or mobile apps. To give you an example, on the African continent, there are many solutions available that had been originated there in Africa, like M-Pesa, the famous mobile phone-based money transfer and microfinance service, which has been created in Kenya, operative since 2007, and since then successfully expanded to other countries in Africa. The program I'm heading, the Business Scouts for Development program, is active worldwide in more than 30 countries, 18 of them in Africa. We at the Business Scouts for Development program are also making use, of course, of digital tools in order to reach its goal to enhance the cooperation between local and European companies and economic institutions like chambers of commerce or crafts. Through digital solutions, the physical distance between partners can be reduced, as simply as this. This is especially important in times of COVID-19, the ongoing crisis. International travels have become more difficult, exposure travelers to the risk and getting infected. This is why digital tools are now more relevant than ever. We are introducing digital trade fair pitches, to give you an example, and preparation programs as of May 2021 in order to offer local companies in Africa and other continents the chance to prepare themselves for future trade fairs in order to find markets and customers for their products in Europe, for example. Sustainable supply chains are another big topic we are supporting through our experts. Business integrity and corporate governance are essential parts for all companies engaged in any supply chain, like you were saying also, Rainer. Therefore, we see the importance also for local companies in Africa to be well positioned in this field and to know where they need to improve. Now, this is why we have been supporting the upgrade of the Alliance for Integrity's TheIntegrityApp into French, to offer this great tool also to companies in Francophone African countries. A local launch in Cameroon through our Business Scout will follow soon. The Integrity app is a helpful digital tool in order to self-assess how your own company scores in relation to compliance and anti-corruption issues. After completing the self-evaluation as part of the tool questionnaire, access to information that is tailored to specific companies' issues can be provided through the tool, by the tool. The training material includes practice-oriented podcasts, videos, and texts that provide a step-by-step guideline to improve your compliance program. Therefore, I would encourage all companies to try and test it themselves. With the new French version, it is now available, I think, in 6 languages and can support companies around the globe. Thank you.
Thank you, Roland. I think that there's going to be, in a few minutes, we are going to have the official launch of the the risk assessment feature, and also some more information about this. So I'm really looking forward to hear for that. And considering all the tools that you mentioned, well, Africa is now well in line with what other regions of the world are using, right, in digital tools. So I move back to Rainer again. So if you can please, Rainer, share with us what type of digital tools do you see in the market that supports compliance effectively, right? So I think that you told us a little bit about the compare tool in your previous speech. So if you can elaborate a little bit about that.
Yeah, certainly, happy to. So on the first part of the question, what are the tools that we see in the market? I can provide you and the audience here with the results of a recent survey that we did amongst DECO members. So it's not an official one, it's not represented, it's not published. But what I can share, I think for it very much aligns with my perception of the market. And so interestingly, and it was across all sectors, all size of companies, so it's not really sector or size specific. However, most of the companies participating had activities in more than 10 countries. Yeah, so it was globally active companies. Now, amongst these, all of them had at least one tool that they use. Either they build it themselves, or they have a tool in place that they acquired from a vendor. And there are, I would say, 3 groups if you want. And the first group and most popular are certainly e-learning programs. Also, what we see a lot is whistleblower hotlines as digital tools, so the intake system, but also the whistleblower management systems. Somehow these are more sophisticated and more complicated and costly tools. So this is more for really larger, globally active companies.
So you mean the case management systems?
The case, right? The case management for and then certainly also the business partner tools. So tools that allow you to do a business partner check, and there again, tools in the market are usually for larger companies, because they are quite sophisticated. Then a second group of tools is policy management. An important part, I mean, that you keep the overview on that your policies are up to date and that they are rolled out correctly, that everyone has had access to it, and so on. Also in this category falls contract management, and more risk assessment tools. So this, I would say, is the second group. And then a third group of digital tools are gifts and hospitality tools. So tools that you really deploy in a way that your employees are able to check with a digital tool whether an invitation is acceptable or not. Same for the topic like conflict of interest, so that you can do a self-check on a digital way, or data privacy. So that is, as I said, sharing with you this these results, and I think it gives a good overview. Now, what you mentioned on what we did at DECO is indeed trying to also give our members and develop together with our members, but also for our members, tools that help compliance. And what we focused on for 2 years now was to develop a tool that enables compliance officers to compare code of conducts. So this is a very annoying work in the business partner check to see whether the code of conduct of your business partner is in line with the requirements of your own code of conduct. And so this work, even in large companies today, is still done manually, ticking the box,
Yeah, it
trying
takes
to find out.
takes a lot of time, right? So, but it also happens with a lot of the policies that sometimes compliance officers we need also to review, right? And it's not just a comparison between the former policy and the new ones, right? It requires a lot of, when you have to do benchmarks, right? It would be really nice to have something like that.
And so what we developed, which is close to launch now, is with the help of an Berlin-based startup to create a tool using AI in a way that the policy, the code of conduct are read and understood and then matched in a way so that it is easy at least to find where are the relevant provisions so that you can compare and then can easily make your comments and come to a quick result. So that's, as I said in the beginning, is a tool that will enhance efficiency in this area.
Completely. And you mentioned the e-learning programs, the whistleblower or the intake or the case management systems, and you also mentioned the gifts of hospitality, because those are kind of like the processes within compliance that are more, that needs more documentation, that it's better to have systematized in some sort of way in order to simplify our daily challenges, right? So, and I think that most of the compliance offices, small or big ones, right, that already had this technology in, I'm sure that they are have been one step ahead when COVID hit, right? So I think that those ones that have not tried, even for free, right? There's a lot of applications out there for free. The TheIntegrityApp is one of those, right? To encourage you to try, right? Don't be afraid to innovate, right? And to try these things. So we haven't, at least I haven't heard neither of you to talk about, or very briefly maybe when Roland was explaining about the use of digitalization and how, you know, this impacts our other part, which is the supply chain, right? So, and I would like you, Roland, to elaborate a little bit, why is supply chain management even more important in times of crisis, the big crisis like this? We have been reading a lot about you know, how COVID has impacted, right, all the businesses everywhere. So those participants that are, you know, inside but haven't been mute, please do so, because it's very noisy. Thank you. So, and how, you know, why is supply chain again, change management even more important in times of crisis, and how else is the Business Scouts for Development program supporting companies with digital tools?
Yeah, thank you, Silvana, again for this question. I think a very, very justified question, and let me try to answer it the following way. We all know that prosperity in developed countries and the economic opportunities of developing and emerging markets are closely linked through the famous supply chains. And unfortunately, that's the other part of the coin. Many of the products and raw materials that make our lives easier are produced or extracted under absolutely intolerable environmental and or working conditions for very low wages often, and even with some cases with exploitative child labor. In times of crisis, control mechanisms often do not work because audits cannot take place on the spot, or supplier visits had to be postponed simply because they couldn't travel. So all in all, an effective supply chain management according to sustainable criteria is absolutely essential for companies of all sizes. If children cannot go to school due to the spread of the coronaviruses because the schools are closed, this should not lead to an increased child labor and the exploitation of children. Companies also have responsibility to ensure this. But also when it comes to compliance within supply chains, company anti-corruption measures such measures need to be implemented and maintained as part of third-party compliance measures of a company. The Integrity app I was mentioning can also be of support in that regard, and we will see that later. For suppliers itself, it is important that they proactively also keep track of regulation and requirements by their customers. Now, coming back to your second question, particular tools that our program is offering. As a matter of fact, there have been a number of formats that have been transferred in recent months from a physical appearance to a digital way. Some projects I can mention here in Latin America. There is one tool which is called Women Go Digital. It's an e-learning program for women on digital transformation, for instance. This includes topics such agile methods, artificial intelligence, robotics, and blockchain. The program is accompanied by webinars with good practice examples that allow also the digital networking of the women amongst themselves. In general, e-learning is becoming more and more important, not matter the subject. We are partnering with Atingi here as well in a lot of occasions. Atingi is a digital learning platform developed with the framework of GIZ's Africa Cloud. Business Scout for Development program, together with its partners, is offering online trainings on welding via this platform. This year, we are piloting digital measures for companies related to trade fair and sales promotion. As part of the so-called trade fair pitches, we will conduct in several countries that selected companies present their products and services in a virtual exhibition environment to an expert jury. So the jury afterwards evaluates the exhibition companies and selects the most promising ones for subsequent funding. And another digital tool to close with, we are making more and more use of it, is the so-called Leveris platform that links German development cooperation with the private sector. We are closely collaborating since 2019 and have uploaded several business opportunities in various countries. To sum up, let me say that we are very glad through the collaboration with Alliance for Integrity that we can also offer this app to companies in French-speaking countries where we are active in at the moment. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. And there's one reminder that I would like to make to the audience, that please feel free to drop any question, any comment. There are some colleagues from the Alliance for Integrity that will take those questions and will summarize and give it to me, because I cannot see it right now. But it's really important that we make this interactive. So we are really looking forward for your questions. I have I've heard you both about all the available tools that are out there, right? No matter which region we are talking about, and I like what you mentioned, Rainer, about the three main reasons that we can use those as a selling points, right? At some certain point for our companies, but we haven't talked too much about the risks, right, of going over digital, right? So I think that one of the things that maybe we have learned, unfortunately, with this COVID situation is that we are now overwhelmed. It seems that we are overwhelmed with digitalization, right? That digitalization has covered not just work, but also our personal lives as well, right? So it's sometimes we feel that I have, team members that are telling me, I feel that sometimes I'm with the computer, and when I turn it off, I turn on my phone, and then, it keeps going, right? So, and so I would like to discuss a little bit between us three about the risks, right, of going or on going to digital, right? So I'm thinking out loud about cyber breaches. I'm thinking about data privacy, data protection, data integrity. So all these concepts that are so close to our compliance practice, right? So, and do you see the, you know, there's not too, let's say that we are not taking, you know, that we have rushed too much in getting digitalization of our practices without thinking about those things? How do you see, how do you perceive this?
I don't think, and I'm not of the opinion that we haven't thought enough about that. If we speak about data privacy, at least in Germany, that's a topic for many years now. And one must say it has been, this discussion then has been a driver for European and also international enhancement in the area of data privacy. I mean, today we see the big tech firms in the US becoming favorable towards data privacy. So that's a positive outcome of this discussion. On the other hand, you cannot solve all problems in this world theoretically. So there is a development on the go. And we need to apply what we've learned in the past to the things and the developments that we want to drive today. And indeed, if a company develops or acquires a tool for a certain use case, then yes, they will have to look at data privacy. And to take one example, I mentioned whistleblower hotlines.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very, very sensitive area for personal data, but also for company secrets. So yes, you need the technical setup in a way that it is secure. So secure and safe from external, how do you say, attacks.
Yeah, attacks.
Yeah. But also the way you treat the information that you have in the system internally. So I think it is not a question of being too quick or too digital. That's not a comment, at least not my concept. But we need to do it in a good manner, in a compliant manner. And for me, the greatest risk of a digital project is that it fails because it isn't used. So you spend energy and effort, but you don't do it in the right way. And in the end, you have something created and money spent, and then it's not used by the intended target users.
Yeah. And let's don't forget about the tone of the top, which is like something that we always care, right? So there's no project like this that links compliance with technology that without the support from the management, right, can success, right? So Roland, I have a question from the audience here on the chat from Carolina from the GAC. How can we make sure that digitalization do not bring more inequality? You have an extensive experience with third world countries, so what's your point on that, right?
First of all, let me come back to what Rainer was saying before.
Yeah.
I'm also of the opinion that digitization, if we look at it over the past 12 to 15 months, was first of all a positive phenomena. I think without this push in terms of digitization, the world could not have gone on the way it had gone on. So I think it helped many private and business people to move on and to keep up their business, to keep up communication in a way that was not thought of before. We in GIZ, I was in Morocco by the time the crisis broke out, and the country was locked down. Within the time of I don't know, a few days or one or 2 weeks, we were connected within Morocco to our projects in the countryside. We were connected to our head office in Germany. We were connected to our peers in Tunisia and Egypt. And even for us, as I said earlier, elderly people who were not so much into the IT business, it was great that we could connect and could exchange. So I saw it, first of all, as a positive phenomena. But of course, there are risks associated with it. And one risk, what a colleague is referring to, is definitely that those that are not able, for various reasons, to participate in digitization, that this digital divide we keep on talking about for many years is widening again. There is certainly a risk, and the example I was mentioning before, the M-Pesa finance, microfinance service and money transfer service, before this system was invented, nobody was thinking of a financial transfer system to be operational in a country like Kenya or Tanzania or Uganda. Within a very short period of time, it was proved that this is possible and the digital divide could be bridged. So even though there is a digital divide, even though there's a risk that people are even more distanced than before, I'm still positive that there can be solutions that here and there the digital divide can be closed.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the challenge is now like in the past, right? Like compliance officers, when we were tailor our compliance programs and our trainings, now we have to do the same, or we need to try to, to bring those people that are not so familiar with technology within, for example, our trainings, right? So it's fantastic to use, these applications of interactivity like Menti, like the ones that we have used in this conference before. But if there's a person that do not have an additional device or is not familiar with this, we have to make sure to bring everyone in, right? Because if not, we might be missing people, and that is something that definitely we don't want, right, in the compliance program. So I don't know if I have more questions coming in. There's one question from Jose Quiñones that maybe Rainer, you can, or Roland, any of you. We have been working in creating standardized metrics to measure compliance across many different activities and industries, many different efforts out there, but not necessarily compatible with each other, right? Any thoughts of this?
I mean, that's touching on a point and a topic that would probably require a whole debate. It's the metrics on compliance. How can you measure good compliance? I mean, there's a whole debate around if the number of cases in a certain area is an indicator for good or bad compliance. I mean, a company that has no case at all may have a very bad compliance, and a company that has cases may have a good compliance because they come to light. So there are other metrics that you can use, that is the number of policies, the number of trainings. But is that really an indicator? I mean, does this really prove good compliance? In the end, and this is something where I think we come to, and that's completely undigital if you want. Where we come to is that the concept of compliance in modern companies is moving more and more towards integrity. And this concept is of importance because today, if you want to keep your employees with the company, if you want to keep your good stuff with the company, you need to create an environment where people want to work. And so a good indicator for me would be the turnover that you have in people. So a good company probably would be one where people love to work because they feel that this is a good place to work. So it may not be the expected answer, but I think it would go into this direction, more on the human resources side, to get feedback from employees rather than having metrics.
Well, necessarily, yeah, sorry, Roland, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe it's also a matter of time. I'm just thinking of another process I was involved to quite an extent in green finance, which is part of the ESG discussion, of course. And we kept, discussing for quite some time on the metrics, on the various concepts of green finance by banks, by insurance companies, and investment companies. And it took quite some time till a common denominator for metrics had been accepted. I think in terms of green finance, we are much further ahead than 5-10 years back. And there are much more companies now reporting on a comparable basis. So it is much clearer. Is a green finance product now? Is it just greenwashing, or is it a real green finance product that contributes to or has a positive impact on the environment? So it's also a matter of time. The more companies that are reporting, I think the more the metrical basis will also enlarge, and the more metrics can be made available for the companies to participate in such programs.
Thank you both. I really enjoyed this last question, and thank you, Jose, for raising this topic. I think that there's a as Rainer said, there's a lot to discuss about metrics in compliance, and so I'm really happy because we are super on time. So thanks all of you. Thanks, Dr. Markford. Thanks, Roland, to join us.
Pleasure.
I hope you have enjoyed this session as much as I did. So, and now we'll give the floor back to Amanda, so she will continue with the agenda. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Silvina, Roland, and Rainer for this great session. So we could hear how digitalization can be an ally to increase business integrity, and that it's a goal that we have to achieve. And some governments are using digitalization in their strategy. And we want to share with you one best practice from Colombia's government, that's our partner that is using the Integrity app to do it so.
Desde la Vicepresidencia de la República y la Secretaría de Transparencia estamos impulsando las hojas de ruta de la integridad empresarial. Estas hojas de ruta lo que pretenden es subir los estándares de ética, de compliance y de control interno, con el fin de tener un actor dentro del sector privado que luche contra la corrupción y le ayude al gobierno nacional en sus propósitos. Para ello contamos con TheIntegrityApp. TheIntegrityApp ha permitido que el Gobierno Nacional y la Secretaría de Transparencia llegue a más empresas. Para ello, la Secretaría de Transparencia ha hecho pactos con cada uno de los sectores con el fin de que cada una de las empresas y cada una de las agremiaciones se haga parte no solo de la ruta de la integridad, sino que con la aplicación TheIntegrityApp lleve y haga todo el curso y eleve sus estándares de compliance, de control interno, con el propósito de dar mayor integridad, control social y control desde las empresas privadas.
This is one practice from the Colombia's government that have been used the Integrity app to increase the business integrity in the country. That was also nominated in the policy paper from B20 as a best practice that we want to share with you. And change a little bit, but not so much. We will move for the next step of our session this morning, and it's based about risk. Risk is often viewed as a negative for a company, but it's always a result to understand and prioritize risks to SMEs. And today they will gain an ally for move forward with this, with the new feature of the Integrity app. I'd like to invite Pedro Husk, Integrity Director and General Controller of the Union in Brazil and member of the sounding board of the Integrity app, to talk a little bit more about it. Pedro, the floor is with you.
Thank you very much, Amanda, for the introduction. I would like to thank Alliance for Integrity for the invitation for me to talk here today. I also would like to congratulate my fellow panelists for the presentation they made, and also congratulate Colombia for the great work using the Integrity app. For me today, it's both an honor and a pleasure to be here to represent the Brazilian Office of the Controller General at this event, and also at the sounding board. I mean, for me, I mean, to follow the further development of the app was very interesting and very important for Brazil as well. I have today a very important announcement to make, and I am honored about that, which is the new feature of the Integrity app, this new functionality, which is the risk assessment questionnaire. So as of today, this feature is available both at the app and the website. So just feel free to check it out. It's right next to the self-assessment link. So companies are now able to assess their risk prior adopting a compliance program. I mean, it's safe to say that this new feature, this new functionality, is probably the most important app update to the Integrity app so far, mainly because of the importance of conducting a risk assessment prior the adoption of a compliance program, especially in the context of a crisis, as the one we are facing, both the COVID crisis and the financial crisis that came because of the COVID crisis. Actually, the risk assessment, the risk assessment has to be seen as a starting point of the adoption of compliance program, an anti-corruption compliance program, any kind of compliance program. Actually, the company needs to understand their risks. And this new feature of the Integrity app is important because, at least in Brazil, and I assume that this situation is similar in other countries as well, companies are not used to assess their compliance and corruption risk. I mean, we do see that they do the commercial risk assessment, financial risk assessment, labor risks. So those risk assessments are part of the day-to-day business, but not the one related to bribes and frauds in this relation to the public administration. So this the Integrity app now has this sort of like this direction for companies to, okay, take a look at this corruption risk prior adopting your compliance program. And why is that so important? We do see in Brazil many companies adopting a compliance program, an anti-corruption compliance program, without conducting their risk assessment prior to that adoption. And then we see a few scenarios, mainly 3 scenarios, problems that we see when we evaluate compliance program. The first one would be that the compliance program does not mitigate the risks to which the company is exposed. I mean, this is the most obvious scenario because if the company did not identify the risk, it's safe to say that the company will have some difficulties when structuring their compliance program. In this scenario, we see a lack of policies, lack of procedures, controls, so pretty much the compliance program won't work. The other scenario that we also see is that if the company adopts a compliance program without conducting their risk assessment prior to that adoption, the compliance program can exceed the needs of the company, and we see an impact on the business model, on the way the company is managed. due to the excess of procedures and controls that are not needed for that specific company. So we see that as well. And the third scenario that, of course, is related to the other two that I mentioned is that the company puts money in direct funds to projects and initiatives that the company doesn't need at that moment. I mean, we do see that quite a lot because, of course, the company has no idea of what to address first because the company didn't do their risk assessment. So those are the problems that can be faced, can be solved when conducting a risk assessment. And what is actually a risk assessment, and what is the goal now with this new feature, this new functionality at the Integrity app? Well, I mean, very summarized, the goal of a risk assessment is to identify situations, events, processes where, in this case, we are talking about bribery, so where bribe or any other act of corruption could take place, considering the company's profile. So we identify it first, then we calculate the probability of that event occurring, and then we calculate the impact of that event on the company. So that's pretty much what a risk assessment would be. It's important to mention that, as I said, you have to take into account the company's profile. So if the profile changes, a new risk assessment has to be done. And we did see that quite a lot during the COVID crisis. So companies that were not used to render services to the public administration, for instance, and from one day to the other decided to take part in public bidding processes in order to have an extra revenue because by rendering services to the public administration. If we think of this changing in profile, we do see a company coming from a situation where there's almost no risk of corruption to a high risk of corruption because now the company will have contracts and agreements with the public administration. So in this situation, a risk assessment has to be done as well. There is this focus on the public-private relation. So the questionnaire, the new questionnaire at the Integrity app, focuses on this connection to public administration. And just to give you a few examples of questions that you all will see when using this new risk assessment questionnaires. So for instance, if the company give gifts to the public administration, for instance, if the company allows receiving cash payments by the public administration, it poses a risk as well. If the company pays travel and hospitality expenses, for instance, that's also a question that is in this new feature of the Integrity app. If the company depends heavily on public funds, I mean, just think about that. I mean, if the company needs this contract, this agreement with the public administration to live, of course, there is a high risk of corruption as well. Another question, another example would be if the company depends on licenses and permits to conduct its businesses. So that's the question facing that issue as well. I invite you all to take a look at this new feature, this new functionality. This new feature will answer a lot of questions of companies. We do receive here at CGU, the Office of the Controller General, questions from companies that want to know which kind of methodology do we recommend when carrying out this risk assessment. Usually what we say is, well, there are a many number of methodologies out there, and but the most important part is to identify, to know their business, and to identify these events that pose risks to the company. So it's pretty much a process of getting to know itself, risk assessment too. Well, lastly, just going to the end of my brief speech, I would like to send a special thanks to the team from Twitter and DHL Brazil, and also my team at CGU that did work directly on the questions of this new feature. Thank you once again for the opportunity, Amanda and Alliance, and I give you back the word. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pedro. Thank you all members for the sounding board to have been supporting us to develop this new feature. And to close this event with Very excited news and futures. I'd like to invite Susanna Fradish, the Director of the Alliance for Integrity, for the closing remarks. Susanna?
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. And
Thank you.
yeah, I was really listening very carefully to the whole session, very exciting discussion. Thank you to Silvana for the great moderation of the first part and the great insights from Roland Gross and Rainer Markford. We all see that the businesses are getting more digital, and we see also that the companies who act in global supply chains have to assume bigger responsibilities at the company level, but also towards their suppliers and in emerging markets and in developing countries, but not only. And so there's a strong need for more digitalization to handle this data. And one important point that we also see as a great opportunity at Alliance for Integrity is to have a better outreach towards the business community. And we see it in our network that in this year where we had to change all our formats into visual formats, we have been able to get in touch with more actors and integrate more views and perspectives also on the whole debate on business integrity and compliance. So it's good to see the opportunities. I think the risk assessment is a core interest of the companies, as Pedro Rusca explained very well. If you don't know your risks, you are not able to implement a compliance management system. The risk orientation is key to handle these risks and apply the necessary tools and activities. So I'm happy to have the support from all these different actors who have been engaged in the further development of the app. Thank you for the Business Scouts program for making available a French version of the Integrity app that hopefully will help us also to reach out better to our partners in Francophone African countries to get engaged in the network. And thank you also to the great support of Christina Vander from the Business Scout, who is always exchanging with us and looking how we can do better together and create synergies of the two programs. And the sounding board of the Integrity app is really a great group of people with so much knowledge and experience that help us to further develop these tools. And not only the Integrity app, but also to open a discussion on the digital tools that are available for the community of compliance officers. And hopefully we will be able to continue this work on co-creating and doing more interesting things together, creating tools for the SMEs in the first place, but also other target groups. So, and having that said that, I'd like to close the session also. Thank you to all of you. Just one last comment, perhaps, because Rainer Markford also mentioned that the scope of the responsibilities of the compliance officers is changing due to new responsibilities of the companies. This is an aspect that we are going to discuss tomorrow at our panel. We call it Compliance 3.0. There are a lot of new tasks for compliance officers and integrity policies in the companies ahead, and we all invite you to join our discussion. Thank you for Amanda for preparing the session and for guiding us through this hour. And thanks again to all of you.
Thank you, Susanna. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.